Psalms last week, and my little book, it tells you about David.
What were you doing out there?
And I'll give you a quick summary. This one, it tells you who.
It's just about done. Other than cutting the rest
Oh,
of
that's
it.
all right. Oh, I just had a quick, sure, yeah, sure. So, thank you. And also, it also was everything highlighted as far as what it means. Okay. So that's why it's got bookmarks in it. Okay. Good morning.
All right, good morning. Hopefully, there we are. Any questions of what we read so far? Well, now we're into Judges now, so now we're getting into storytelling. And
I actually like Judges so far.
yeah, it's not tedious. It doesn't have the long lists.
Right.
There is some repetitive narrative in there that, you know, I brought you out of the land of Egypt, you know, and did all these things, and we'll see that multiple times through there. But I think it was interesting that in Judges, the whole purpose of the judges were because Israel had turned from God and went after other gods, committed idolatry and all kinds of sin. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And then God would send them a deliverer through a judge, and then they'd go back and do it again after that judge died or something.
That's what I found was interesting. It was after, it's like that judge had to be there to keep them on track because they always strayed when he died.
Yes.
Immediately seemed like
Yeah, they didn't waste any time.
I
Yeah.
also thought it was interesting that Caleb gave his daughter to his brother's youngest son, who then became a judge. Which I thought, I thought they weren't supposed to marry that close anymore.
Yeah, they did a lot of things. And you're going to see as we get closer towards people like Jephthah and who was the other judge? Samson. I mean, they did things that you're saying, wait a minute.
just because it's in the Bible doesn't mean it's right, it's history.
All right. And I think in Luke, we're starting to head towards the crucifixion.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
I found it interesting too that, excuse me, that a lot of, I responded to this one guy on Facebook, the Reverend something or other. He was talking about that we need to pray for Pastor Paula White because she's under attack and all this other stuff. No, she's under investigation because of bilking funds from the congregation, but she's also, I consider her a false teacher, and I consider she preaches another gospel. Anyway, then the question came up, should women be pastors? And so I went through, and they always bring up the same people. They bring up Deborah first. And, Deborah was unique in her purpose to Israel during the time of Judges. That was a chaotic time. And so she was unique to that position. She was a prophetess, yes, and she led them in battle, yes, but doesn't necessarily qualify her to be a pastor.
But what did that mean in there where she said I'm paraphrasing, but there will be no glory because I'm going to battle with you?
Oh, because he was supposed to do it, and here was a woman.
And he asked the
supposed to
woman
be
to,
the lesser.
he said he would go if she came too.
Yeah.
He's afraid. They basically say, well, I'm afraid, but if you go, then I know you're telling the truth.
Okay. And so she let him know that took his glory away.
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh, there's a big TV, just an offhand.
It should be up by next Sunday. Yeah, it's going to take up this whole wall, and it'll make it easier to see things.
Sure.
Yeah, for those of us who are hard of seeing.
Yeah, put the sign out. Gotta take my phone.
So I get these questions a lot, and And so, like, the first person they mention is Deborah, and so I have to clarify that. Then they mention Phoebe, and I have to clarify that. Well, Phoebe was a deacon; she was a leader. No, the Bible doesn't say that. Don't add to it.
Exactly. A whole lot of them are teachers, but they're not in a church setting.
Well, and a deacon is not
Pastor.
what a person is. A deacon is what a person does,
Help.
and they serve. They serve. That's what a deacon does. Walter's a deacon. He serves, and it's a descriptive term. It's not a title, and yet so many of religiosity today makes a deacon a title.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and then the who else? Who else did they mention? Oh yeah, Junia, Andronicus and Junia in the New Testament, and they say, well, Junia was outstanding among the apostles. That's what Paul said. Well, that's not what it means. The actual phrase in the Greek means that she was well regarded. That's all it means, But they say, well, she must have been an apostle.
Oh.
It's amazing how people read into stuff
Mhm.
without reading into things like they should.
Pastor and apostle is different too. One's more of a shepherd, but the other one's I don't know.
Well, the thing is that elders and pastors, the distinction of that role is for men specifically, and it's very consistent in the Bible, and it's that way for a reason. It doesn't mean that the woman is lesser. There are some women who are probably better preachers than men, but they can't be pastors. They can't be an elder because it's not God's order. God has a specific order. And one example I like to give is that the son is subject to the father. It doesn't make the son inferior, right? He has a different role. And that's the way it works with men and women in the church. The same order that God has, he would expect that same order within the church. So we have different roles within the church, and that's why only men can be pastors and elders.
One of those women was teaching some king. I mean,
Well, one of the women was teaching, I forgot her name, who it was that was teaching Apollos and correcting him, but her husband was there. So she was under her husband's covering. And because he was there, that made it okay because he could correct that if it was off.
okay to teach, but it's different than a title or
Yeah, and
position.
what's funny is that most of today's modern thinking is like that. Just because God puts a restriction on it, they seem to think that it's a bad thing. It isn't. There's a reason for his restraining certain roles within the body, and we have to accept that.
A woman's role, even today, but back then, she's in charge of the household in the sense that she's rearing children and she's there all day long while the husband is out doing whatever, working, doing whatever. So it would be part of her job to teach the children about one God, what are the rules, what are the commandments, whatever. And the father then would be there to also help with that understanding. But she's there 24/7.
Yeah.
It's her job, and I think that's part of, the men are in the church, but that's gotta come home. And now it's a woman's job probably to pick up that and reinforce sort of what's going on with the children so that they understand every single day what's expected of them.
Yeah, well, and that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot for a woman to handle. It's a lot for a man to have to cover that woman to make sure that she's protected and the family's protected.
A lot of things guys really can't do as well as women, just like women can't do something
Mm-hmm.
as well as men.
I
it's
also,
give and take.
I thought it was interesting when Jesus called Simon out about Satan shifting each of you like wheat. And he pleaded in prayer for Simon that his faith should not fail. So when he is repented and turned back to him, again, and strengthen your brothers. I think that deals with him rejecting knowing Jesus at the time when they brought Jesus in before the Pharisees and
Right.
things. He was calling them out then that Satan would try to get him by denying that he knew Jesus. Is that what that's about?
Yeah, because sifting you like wheat is he's trying to break you down, and by making you feel guilty. And so he knew that Peter would probably experience that guilt, which he did, and he knew that he could easily go and say, "Forget it, I'm out of here."
I'm a failure, I'm gone.
Yeah, which he didn't. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's a hard thing to have to face, but Jesus knows the hearts of men and he knows everybody's intent. He knew what Peter was going to do, but he also knew that Peter would eventually be restored. And the way he restored him was on the shoreline at the end of John. If you remember, I don't, we haven't read that yet, but he cooks fish and sits down and eats with them after they've gone fishing all night. And he walks with Peter and he asks him 3 times, do you love me? Do you love me? Feed my sheep, tend my flock, feed my sheep. And each time Peter answered, yes, yes, yes. And each time were like the 3 times were to restore from the 3 times that he denied Christ. So I thought that was a pretty interesting parallel. What else?
I think it's interesting that they were given their land with the understanding that they had to drive out all the negativity per se.
Mhm.
And instead of doing it, they just made them slaves.
Yeah.
You know?
And what's even more interesting is the Lord knew they were going to do
Yeah.
that. Yeah, he said, I knew you were going to do that.
And finally, he says, then I'm gonna let them have you. He says, you just.
And the amount of years of punishment on the different ones, it was always a little different. Though I remember a 40, but I thought that was interesting that.
Yeah. The 20 or 40. Yeah, it's just that their bondage gets to be unbearable until they finally cry out to the Lord. He just wants them to cry out to him. Had they done that in the first year, he would have raised up a judge earlier. But they just wanted to keep living the way they were living. And this is a good picture of how it is today with people and not wanting to give up their sin and not wanting to give up their lifestyle. But
Their own thing.
yeah,
God's thing, their own thing.
I'll still be a Christian, but I still want to do what I want to do.
Exactly.
Can't.
God knows me, it's okay.
Yeah.
All kinds of things. Just not really wanting to. They're not paying attention. They think he's right there. They're always, well, he's there when I'm at church.
Right.
He's there when I'm praying. But when I'm over here goofing around with a neighbor or whatever, no.
Right.
It's easy to forget. I got to remind myself constantly that he's right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And he should always be the focus of our life, regardless. And I think that's a lot of what we see in all the stories we're going to read in Judges is, you can't do what's right in your own eyes. You have to.
Because they're always doing that. They're always
Yes.
And sometimes what they're doing isn't contrary to God, but it isn't following God. That's what, like there's a lot of people, they're good people, but they're not following God. They can be doing some of the same things that God would tell them to do, but they're doing their own thing. That's just their own thing. That's not following God.
Sure. Yeah.
I thought it was interesting what Moses said in the fact that he said 70 years are given to us. Some even live to 80. But even the best years are filled with pain and trouble.
Yeah. And Jesus said it best, in the world you will have tribulation, you will have trouble.
He says, soon they disappear and we fly away.
It's like a mist, like a.
But here he lived to be 100, what was it, 120?
Yeah.
And yet he's only quoting 70 to 80. Caleb was, Joshua was what, 110?
Mhm.
You know, still out fighting,
Yeah.
you know. That's just, that's just, you know, I see
Doesn't matter
people
how
that can
long.
hardly walk in their 70s, and here they are out warriors.
Still doing the things like they did when they were 20.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's incredible.
Doesn't matter how long you live, you could be thousands of years old. But it's just a fraction of nothing compared to eternity.
And you know, when you look at our lives, we're here, we're like a vapor,
Yeah, you're gone.
here and gone. And we can probably look back in our lives now and say, yeah, I can certainly pinpoint the hard times. I can pinpoint the good times. But I can't necessarily balance them out and say this was more than this or this was better than this, because they were both almost equally in my life and influencing me. And what I thought was good was necessarily bad. It's bad for me and bad for my eternity. And so I need to reevaluate. You know, I think sometimes, a lot of times, I want to look back and say that I wish I made good decisions way back when.
Don't we all?
And yeah, but you sit here and you look, and I look at my age now and I say, wow, I wish I would have been at this spot
Way back
when I was 19 years old, you know?
just looking back when you're plowing forward.
Yeah.
I liked the Psalms this week as they were going back to God being always with us. They were very much, He's my rock. I just really enjoyed the Psalms this week.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked them too. The one today was actually pretty good. But yeah,
The one from Moses is really good. You know, he talks about God protecting and, you know, him being a rock and, you know, that just, all that, just, you're there for us, you know, all we've got to do is, you know, understand that you are with us, I think is the best thing, you know.
and who was the guy that had his head with a tent spike? He had his head punctured.
Oh, yeah. You know, there's a woman there that, I mean, I had to actually read that one twice because he went to them because they were friends to my understanding and wanted it hidden. And for her to do, you know, like later it said in the Psalm, he asked for water, she gave him milk. And he went a little bit more in the Psalm talking about her because it didn't say in the actual reading about the food. Now I don't even remember which day. Was that 2 days ago or 3?
Yeah, a couple days ago.
But for her to kill him because they were all to be wiped out, that was pretty impressive, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, kind of,
Yeah.
this was a friend that she.
Well, and the interesting thing that I felt was that kind of stood out was Deborah. It says she sang a song, and then she repeats the whole story.
Okay, maybe it was there, not in the song. Yeah.
So I don't think when they say singing a song, it isn't like the way we think of it,
Mm-hmm.
like we put a melody to it and a tune. I don't think that's how they sang songs. I think the way they sang songs, they recited things that happened.
That's the way she worded it was different than what. Because he said he bowed down and fell to the ground. The way I understood it, he was laying on the ground and bing, he pinned to the ground.
Yeah, there was a part in there where it says that he was sitting when he died. So I'm not really sure how that all.
One was the song and the other was
Yeah.
the action. In the song it says she brought him milk and then something about butter. In the first one it didn't say anything about butter.
Yeah. So, you know, I don't think a song is necessarily melodious. I think it's just
Saying that
it's just something that they recited. Yeah. And there may be a detail in it that we missed, that we didn't get from the actual story. Yeah. So,
When he bowed down and fell to the ground.
He sang, he fell, he lay still.
legs.
And yet lay still at her feet, and where he sank there, he died. But in the other one, he was hidden and she waited for him to sleep. And, you know.
Pinned him to the ground
Uh-huh.
all the way through.
Yeah. Interesting.
But one was a song, and it was just a celebration of the fact of what the woman did.
Yeah.
It didn't have to be necessarily accurate. It was just the fact she killed him because he trusted her.
Yeah. It's interesting, when you have people that you trust and they turn on you. And I think that's been happening a lot throughout the scripture, and it happens a lot in life. I mean,
But when he came to her, he was kind of, for his own thinking anyhow, he was just trying to hide. He was just trying to get away.
yeah,
And basically, by going to her, that would endanger her. I mean, he wasn't thinking about nothing but himself.
sure.
And maybe she was doing the same when she killed him because, after all, he's endangering me.
I don't know how to pronounce his name. Is it Ehud?
Ehud?
Strapped a dagger to his thigh,
Yeah,
and then.
a long dagger. And then,
A long dagger, and the other thing is, he was Benjamin, from the tribe of Benjamin.
yeah,
He was left-handed,
yeah,
and he went and saw the king.
Yep.
And left, then came back again, said he had a message from God,
all right.
took out this dagger, and he plunged it so deep that
The handle disappeared
the handle disappeared.
because the guy was very fat.
Yeah. So about that long.
But the interesting thing is, too, and I keep saying interesting, so I'm kind of overusing that word. But what I thought was
Interesting.
was that the dagger was strapped to his right thigh. He's left-handed, so that means he would have to reach across his body to get the
I
dagger.
did that same motion in my head when I read that description, as if it's here. Yeah,
But wasn't it attached to his inner thigh?
I don't know.
I thought, can't remember now.
Now, I don't know if it says that he grabbed it with his left hand.
it did.
It
Well,
does.
he was left-handed.
Well, just because it says he's left-handed
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean that he grabbed it with his left
That
hand.
was an interesting thing too about the tribe of Benjamin being left-handed,
Mhm.
because when they would go into battle, they would, they were superior in that sense because they weren't fighting
They
with
were
their
ready
right
for
hand
it.
with swords and whatnot. They were doing it with their left hand, which caught a lot of them off guard because they were expecting right-handed warriors,
Sure.
and they were left-handed.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
It was interesting. It was all in the tribe of Benjamin.
Just history.
That they were the left-handed ones.
Didn't I say something that was negative about being left-handed?
in the Bible.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It does say, it names him a left-handed, and then he had reached with his left hand and pulled out the dagger strapped to his right.
Okay, so that means that he must have been. It would have to be on the inside because you'd have to you have to reach all the way over to the outside to get to it, and then bring it out, which he would see it before he.
If you consider it being concealed to start with.
Well, listen, to strap it to your thigh, you're wearing what, tunics? I mean,
Mhm.
you're not wearing pants. You're wearing,
Right.
so you've got to lift it to go get.
Well,
dagger.
and the other thing is, and this is all hypothetical now, but
Yeah.
let's say he was sitting in a throne or a chair that was elevated off the floor, and then Ehud just raised his right leg to rest on the pedestal, which would make it easy to grab the dagger. And
Especially if he was kneeling,
yeah,
But on the inside,
he could
like you said,
have that
be easier to
left knee
conceal.
down, right leg with that left.
I don't think he
And it
was
would be
kneeling
easy to
though.
grab across.
I don't think it says he was
If
kneeling.
you put it on the outside,
but-
it could show up from your clothing. It might bulge, it might.
Yeah,
On the inside, it might be, but it's just.
and if that dagger
It's just
is
concealed.
what, 14 inches? You said,
About that long,
yeah,
about from here to here.
yeah. That's a pretty big
And
knife,
it's in so deep that,
And you're not hiding in a boot because they're wearing sandals.
right?
So, yeah, but it being in the presence of a king, most likely he is kneeling in some way. in order to approach him and do whatever, he's
Well, I
not.
got your gift. I imagine they got close together somehow.
Did he say he got him a gift?
Huh?
Did it say that he got him a gift?
Well, yeah, I got a message or something from God.
Oh, yeah, yeah. He said he got a message from God.
So they must have. Come here. I don't know, but that's what I kind of pictured.
Well, and it just,
Close.
it made me think, wow, that guy must have been pretty big for the whole thing to disappear. And
Yeah,
How do you also escape through the tree?
yeah,
you figure that long, if he hit me, he's gonna come out the back.
yeah,
But to get stuck in the factory, he must have been.
yeah. So, you hear and see words inside the scripture that make you understand they weren't a backwards people. They were well advanced. In fact, they had a lot of mathematical advancement. Egyptians did, Phoenicians did, the Persians did. They understood things. And there's actually a video that you can see. Wally Wallington actually moves these multiple ton granite stone pieces without a crane, without modern tools. He's able to move them, rotate them, and do all this other stuff using physics.
They supposedly just found recently how they actually built the pyramids. Something about they had moved a lot of it through canals, big rocks.
Yeah, and I still have issues with that because that's a lot of stone, big stone, to move through rough terrain like that.
Right, but it sounded like they found it almost supposedly in between some of the rocks, a diary of a guy who was helping to build the pyramid.
Yeah.
And how they made almost trenches where they floated, which is a huge rock to float. But anyway, about it, for the longest time, we making up the ideas, well, it must have been spacemen or something come down because it's
Yeah.
so far advanced. Well, they were never backwards to start with.
Right. And that's our big mistake is we think that they were archaic back then, and they weren't. They had ovens, they had stoves, they had they had the technology to live in the world they lived in. And what modern technology does is it makes us lazy. We cannot reproduce what they did thousands of years ago. We can't reproduce. We could rebuild a pyramid, sure, but we'd have to use all this modern equipment, technology, and all this other stuff. And to be able to move stones that big from a quarry to a location, it would take a lot of joint effort from all these big machines and everything else just to move them and then get them in place and make sure they get aligned perfectly. We don't have that knowledge today.
That's true.
Yeah, it's like the three pyramids in Egypt, the main three pyramids in Egypt. Those are aligned with Orion's belt perfectly. They line up perfectly with Orion's belt, the constellation.
The other thing is pyramid gliders that they put propellers and things on, and they fly now. But at the time we found it, we didn't have planes.
Yeah.
As far as the technology is concerned, they always say, oh, it was, the pyramids were built by slaves, blah, blah, blah. But they're finding now that those people were very well taken care of.
Yeah.
They actually have
They were hired.
that they underwent brain surgery. They had their bones reset, that they were very well fed and taken care of, because you can't retrain these people to do what you want them to do. So you've got to be taking care of them. They weren't out there, just, well, that one died, just go get another one. Well,
Can you start the coffee?
so, the technology was there. I mean, they marvel at the brain surgery, and the person survived. The technology was there to take care of these people.
Yeah.
We just had no idea how they did it.
Yeah, it's easy to say that slaves built the pyramids if you're just looking at the outside portion, But you look at the design on the inside, you got all these water channels, air channels, and chambers and all this other stuff, and it all interconnects. And it's like, wait a minute, this took some mathematical computation. This took some kind of
Yeah, I mean, so you're not taking a bunch of just slaves who you just captured
yeah,
and putting them out there saying, hey, this is what you know. They were, had to be
Did you turn it off?
trained
no,
and
I turned
taken,
it on and it's off now. It's on now.
okay, sorry,
had to be trained and taken care of. And one of the theories too was it was seasonal. In the fact that a lot of these farmers that did a lot of the manual labor would be doing their harvesting and planting and whatever, and then in the off time would actually come in and work.
Yeah.
Which would also give them pay and whatnot and go back to, so they had a
yeah.
huge,
And there's a number of locations around the world that has all these giant stones, too big to lift, perfectly cut, and fit together without any gaps.
yeah, well, getting back to this king, I mean, in the room he was in, he had left, locked the doors. The servants thought the king was in the latrine. But he didn't come out for a long time, so they finally went and got the key and of course found out he was dead.
Yeah.
But there again, all that, you've got to build all of that into that building
Mm-hmm.
for all of that, and that all takes mathematics, it's,
A lot of that we're
all
just
of it,
coming around to
to
now.
build all that, and
Yeah.
to carry the waste away.
Yep.
I mean, the whole system.
Yeah, because you can't have it linger, because that would
200
be
years
good.
ago, we couldn't do half of the stuff they were doing.
Right. Shauna, what do you got? Nothing? Okay. If that's it.
Not put on the spot like that.
Do you guys like history?
Some
Okay, because today is going to be about history. It's going to be more educational than it is teaching. Spiritual, yes. But I think it's important so that we can get a good understanding of what we believe, and it'll help us. So yeah, it's going to be
where
about
we're getting some of this stuff from,
the what?
where we're getting some of our thinking from.
No, it's actually just archaeological and historical. It's not, and even he ties it to the Bible, but it's we're going to watch a video, and so, but yeah, it's going to be. It's really a good video
So
to
to
watch.
get our mindset to what their life was like.
No, it'll get your mindset to the time of Jesus and his
Oh, okay.
crucifixion,
Okay.
and what it looks like today as opposed to what it looked like back then, and why it's important to understand that, because that's going to help you understand what happened, when it happened, when you read through it in the Gospels. And we're getting to that point today, or we'll probably by tomorrow we'll start reading about the crucifixion and the trial and all that other stuff, and we're going to see where all that happened. So
One of the things that you just saying that was Pilate and Herod were enemies, but on that day they became friends. Did you read that? And I just thought that was like kind of a random, it was in today's.
well, Herod wasn't a full-blooded Jew. He was half Jew and half Syrian, I think.
The very last verse was Herod and Pilate, who had been enemies before, became friends that day. Why? I guess what is the purpose of that verse?
Well, politically, Herod was trying to position himself to be in good standing with Pilate, because Pilate was the governor of Judea, and Pilate controlled the military, and Pilate controlled everything. And Herod was like a puppet king. So when you're a puppet king or a puppet president, you will do and say whatever makes them happy to make things smooth, so that way you can maintain your kingdom. Otherwise, they take it away from you.
Well, was it in that it was like an acceptance of we're going to condemn Jesus at that point because the one could find no fault, so we sent him, because of Galilee,
Mhm.
is that right? Sent him to Herod, and then Herod sent him back to Pilate.
Right. Neither one of them wanted to have that on.
Responsibility
Yeah.
of what the masses
And
want.
bonded over that.
Yeah. And so that's probably what did it. And then when of course when Pilate did, do you want Barabbas or you want Jesus? And they chose Barabbas.
That was again a move trying to get them to release him because he was already a known killer. You think if they gotta let this guy go or Jesus go because this guy, they know has been causing problems.
Yeah.
They know he's a murderer. And they didn't do it. They were already cultured.
Yep. All right.
Hi, Becca.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Just throw that anywhere.
Morning. I got an extra copies of these if somebody wants them.
Okay.